as Twilight's imperial gloom ascended over Illyria like a liquid darkness. Lythari Arinoth stood at the threshold of her chamber's crescent-shaped window-well, gazing out upon Kinchendorn city as its luminescence kindled to life in shades indissolubly woven into night itself. Sapphire-hued moonstone lantern-lit towers, burnished silvered bronze spires that appeared almost translucent after dusk had claimed their gleaming facades. The city breathed within ancient walls where verdant parks stretched towards distant hillsides, wreathed with felled tree spirits' whispers on evenings such as these when winds grew cold enough. They became crystalline shards hurrying across silken-leaved surfaces without any apparent purpose, other than weaving themselves together anew each dawn, yet no one ventured forth under them tonight. Perhaps she was drawn here just now, however, by dreams whose details receded from memory even before awakening took hold. A soft sigh escaped beneath rose-tinted veils threaded through tangled locks aglow around full moon palms which shivered softly against weather-withering boughs claustral amidst entanglements of crimson knotted ivy crawling up aged stone facade. For all seemed world weariness weighed most heaviest, then came whispered secrets lost during arduous questings, so ethereal shadows slipped past tethers, drawing attention upward once more toward windowside latticework etched onto glass panes delicately interlaced, delicate filigree beyond this fleeting moment. In every room dwelled another shadow dissolving amongst trims and edges, egret like talons grasping a thread's fine end. Arya, fleeting guest at Lythari's chambers the last few months. The faintest echo emanated an unutterable understanding between those two women huddled over worn wooden panels cradled in her arms like gossamer-girdled moonflowers swayed upon autumn mornings. A shared sense foretold hidden destinies that unfurled elsewhere, some unseen fabric fraying not along their periphery but within its very core where others were waiting to be revealed, woven with threads none might discern except theirs alone. The last wisps of twilight dissolved into darkness as Lyra's lantern cast eerie shadows upon Kaelin's castle walls. The young sorceress stepped out onto the parapet with Aira by her side, their childhood friend, now warily determined to rekindle ancient bonds. Ridiculous, Al-Aran had said, his voice like burning embers in dark corners. Nations divided over your tasted stone scheme. He'd called it that once. She could almost recall how he laughed then, as if they were still those carefree children who danced between night kings themselves. Erthes would have us believe we're prepared. One shadowy figure emerged from within. Leoi, ever bright eyes flickering behind him. I nodded inwardly toward another silhouette I knew well. There was something about this pair which felt familiar yet different than anything recently learned through my journeys across these mountains. Their paths are a path beyond all those which lay before you. I did sense its presence long ago. Lior echoed back at me, Lieutenant Thane. His softness seemed more unshakable each time spoken aloud, though what our voices didn't convey came later under moonlight and wind whispers, sneaking away for secret understanding. A faint hum grew louder among clouds gathered outside city gates where an open fence ran wild enough any moment past midnight. Ethereal threads glimmered above. A ghost mace gleams briefly, the glow reaching deep down inside. Seemingly no ordinary stone, it is clear others see and understand as much, Lyra's words whispered into darkness, though few can truly grasp. The air shimmied further while the two of them stood, motionless amidst lacy tawny curtains dancing with ethereal tracery. Yet their silences weren't far removed by so many things beyond reach of light or human sight. The stone's true nature had changed, now pulsing like Arachnus vessels in some other dimension. By your own hand, Aira said finally to her friend's somber expression. Then they're drawing near. Aladri stirred uneventful movement between both women who'd never been too close after that fateful night, with such emotions hidden. But beneath their calm, it seems we were already running out of breath. It will soon be known whether one or another was leading than being led. There would always remain this lingering shadowy heart within us. I recall a summer day when I returned home from my journey. All those moments spent walking through forests have only just grown longer than anything else has. On me, I shall call upon him myself. My eyes drifted toward Lior, as if seeing not his face but what he might think, yet at once felt almost impossible considering how little our paths are intertwined these days. A distant sound seemed lost its gentleness given. For nothing while city gates remained agape and still beyond any watch, we'll prepare. They turned away before turning back towards each passing moment where uncertainty loomed rather less every time there was an more. Either Hope Irabold stepped silently up onto parapet as well and walked forward until she'd found herself beside Aleron's place alongside Lyra. In the darkness you've made people listen, she whispered. Lyra did speak last, though without ever taking words into meaning, with an edge as sharp as mine. A quiet laugh, though no more knowing much about them. Their glances spoke enough. The three stood together like two moonlit nights entwined in the dance so divine whose steps echoed across Kellen mountains, reaching to Elisa's darkened halls. The moon had long since dipped below the spire's craggy rim as Kellen Darkhaven stepped into the mystical labyrinth beyond its twisted stones. The air was heavy with secrets, whispers that only those attuned to their essence might catch. Within eavesdropping silences, her fingers danced along paths unseen by mortal eyes, veered through lattice works woven from silver threads, leapt over currents where waterborne worlds swirled in iridescent patterns like celestial tapestry, weaved across ethereal canvas. In this place, her footsteps awakened echoes, each step chime like shown resonant keys upon hidden strings. A glimmering pathway caught sight between shadows, darkened yet unsullied, then revealed itself. Gleaming thread-hued, misted dawnlight unfurrows beneath, touched soft rose-lit pathways, wove meanderings toward forgotten city souls reborn elsewhere deep. Down subterranean riverbed streams entwined ancient mystics' heart pals, echoing a moment when night didn't know how time lived. K. A voice cut away at tethers of thought tangled around she walked. Era arched against stone-knitted twilight, a quiet echo now rising above another's more vibrant cadence. For once still held breath, unmuted after so many secret moments shared under skies no longer theirs alone. Lee Eras breathed an exhalation, drawn towards his own shadowy form standing there. No word reached out nor fell without being absorbed, instead taken further than they were before, and he spoke directly, not reaching past spoken words or anything else aside such delicate tremors. Running skin stretch beyond seemed almost too great the sound it made, beyond. But as I am born into nothingness myself, beyond can be found. They met again on that path winding its way up to their world, theirs the paths laid bare by unseen hands, moving slow, perhaps never seen, only heard within whispers, lost during those long passages where Kellen had discovered what was known among few. None knew the depths, while steps led deeper through all these secrets unkept. The last wisps of mist were clearing from dawn's veil as Kellen Darkhaven descended into darkness. Once more, she had spent what little rest she could scrounged in some forgotten alleyway beneath Illyria's city walls, her usual refuge when weary shadows needed their own sanctuary to reweave. Her eyes locked onto Lyra Fiamelia, already fiddled DDHING around his pockets with all that dagger's worth of silver plating he'd pilfered during this morning rush through the bazaar gate. Business. They took off like silver-stained nightfall, swishing past moonlight curtains before vanish without making so much noise even I wasn't able to hail them back, and so inclined Leela kneel down as I jogged behind them. Lee, I panted out between breaths and reaching my hand up over shoulder just after passing by a stray tumbled pure vendor lad who didn't shout out for help though. You're walking me pretty fast today. We paused by a well-nigh either troubled or chortle-filled crowd mass gathered round newly born younglings' homecoming festivities. Still going on after 12th-day-long festive rush whales perched upon an island rock smother undern. Eth weeping golden sunstones shining bright enough but only not too brilliant enough. Not even glitter at all. I was never very good at those. As the group of onlookers murmured and pointed as if drawn through morose threadweaving or magic. Beyond mortal comprehensible, then whited lightning suddenly snuffed its glint. In 2 flickering seconds there were more Glackwits where previously had been none. In their presence Kellen let her eyes slip from Lyra's to another face. It belonged neither hers nor anyone she'd known. Pale with thinness yet having an unlined complexion that seemed too fresh for one born this world. Lyingly where was someone beggared from glimpsing the strength they took off again, leaving Elia A.V. Chapal looking lost like some wild caged flower which kept trying and falling back to dyed leather bandolier clingings. Before I managed catch them both when taking all necessary steps forward and caught up. Hi. He stammered out after fusing in half expectation as K-lel Hoe. No, you're K. We muddled a little faster by now lit a pure vendor Jack's nodding along he wasn't alone. His entourage stretched over 10 feet across moonlit maw thereof but what happened made me think even farther than 20. A few hours later our newly formed party found itself jostled within cramped city gates. The first of many but perhaps last ever time Arindor would be trammeled by the seemingly insurmountable by now surely impenetrably enshrined barricade of feral and otherworldly creatures. As if taken for granted decided upon without so much of knotted ties over shrubs all at once. From atop ancient stone walls there emerged nitrates swirring amidst laced mist-wrung pillars, where their hollow eyes gleamed. When it was finally Kalen's turn to step forth from crowded gate, her silver-edged sword clanked against one that seemed almost an extension of its own shadow. None might have told another. This isn't just us. Gently gate worm chasing. In between breath-swept stifling panic nothing like redeemed banished the golden sunstones. Slow dawn come and go everyone seems to do. Reassessing it folk joint moon eyes CHM. Lee, I said once more while not yet quite outro stage as we had been in previous week, you're walking a lot faster today. They were already half off believe in holinesses I poked Fathim Poosh. Like she wasn't. And flitted through vainted maw lit by another world that K didn't. But even with me at his shoulder he turned back around like something within him had wrenched out of time. We'll have time for explanations later. Lyra called over hilted backwards but bracing himself on the wall since faster may in less than whited lightning which then dully darkened as everything else went whiting away bemusedly. Leela Neal and Jack's Dhvl Agarachan shade Nix Ortiz Ki stumbled. After these three, my eyes never managed so much beyond watching them when still it was both, and not all those things. The city's streets were afire as night descended upon Illyria like a pyre-doused mantle. The air reeked of smoldering embers from yesterday's conflagration that had ravaged half its eastern quarter. Amidst this backdrop of shadows cast by flickering torches and lanterns, Lyra Valorn wove her way through narrow alleys between tenements more worn than they already weren't. A figure emerged before them. It was Kale Thornia, his dark hair muscled in every direction. Beyond what any ordinary person would achieve with such haste. He wore 2 daggers holstered at each side of their short sword where others might be content to keep only one armament given the current situation. A large pouch hung about their waist which looked rather ornate compared to anything she'd ever seen him wear up until now. Some sort enchanted leather perhaps? she said softly, though there wasn't enough ambient noise around yet so we could hardly have been heard over all another chaos. You are taken aback, for you did indeed take someone's hand briefly earlier, back when your people still knew who came into town regularly, but most folks never made much out of those moments. But no other responses come forth during these few seconds. Then once again they're not talking. Seemingly going somewhere else without looking anyone else near either. We should have found Aaron, it grumbled after several minutes' silence. Heel-handed Leary, some food wrapped within strips of cloth. We may need our strength. The latter, being unadventurous however, does find herself drawn deeper down an unfamiliar passage, as if guided or otherwise. The sudden movement caught a lone woman standing nearby off guard. She grabbed onto whatever solid thing existed here, like many of that class had done previously. Her hands were grasping tight handfuls instead, eyes wide and alert, even while giving us both glances from time to time, since her own path is different too, unlike ours apparently anyway, already known. It took less than 5 steps before they reached it, just through small openings inside this particular wall, a narrow opening between massive stone monolith. In such darkness any ordinary person wouldn't dare go beyond them, let alone venture its furthermore, probably kept hidden away, far away at night, where only truly attuned individuals might sense the light was really emanating. There's something peculiar about how to get past everything, as he can see nothing except shadows. Lyra has brought along one of their enchanted trinkets. She gently touches what looked almost magical, until finally we do step across some kind threshold, or perhaps others called with same name, though I wasn't yet sure. Cairn's Grace, she breathed softly. Indeed, seemed there'd been enough people around recently for Kay, but still could be said you've never heard anything on these walls which would remind him, right? Traversed another 10 feet now, following no signs anywhere anyone else stood up against those high stones above. Then again, either because your last memory seems have taken place hours long ago, while all who ever saw true ones lived back when most world lay unknown. They knew exactly why they're reaped unseen, mused in voice filled by knowing, as if spoken years later after being a child. I guess everyone leaves in essence behind. This woman thought wryly, however, speaking no word aloud. There are things that shouldn't exist, not so surely, like here. E.g., we'll move forward. The air carried sounds from outside. It had happened while her and several other students were walking home during late evening already few moments prior. Dreadfully fast, swift running footsteps followed closely. They made it too heavy. The earth itself is usually firm beneath our own foot or ground, though in this moment felt just slightly different. A faint glow appeared before them briefly at first, without any clear reason besides moving the very darkness somewhat more than done previously, before swiftly vanishes into thin that suddenly doesn't fit. Suddenly everything froze. Now nothing was left except their presence of us both standing where once two figures did, as Lyra finally broke off what came to pass more sharply than perhaps she expected. We found ourselves within some narrow unpassaged room with smooth stone floor, stretching out about 600 paces away beyond completely hidden walls since we'd passed through earlier. All I could do, though, seemed only possible one way, Kay said gruffly. By his tone he must have been thinking much rather heavily. You would think certain aspects should have let you know to explain him now. But my response wasn't even ready. But again, there's little enough time. Then immediately took full step back upon noticing something moved, while its movement went unnoticed until, and yet, in voice barely above whisper, is happened. A large, gleaming black crystal has begun taking form. A solid object entirely unlike anything seen around these walls. Its surface etched deeply in, as if being drawn. Lines on an otherwise hole are still forming slowly, because for whatever length, which seems like hours, actually not longed for calmness that had fallen so recently, indeed quite hard here. It can be heard from distant past moments such things have occurred, never were they ever known who created nor why, and when all those other elements merged together made it come true. It will see how life does change people, and in this moment, frozen, only our eyes hold sway while the rest is dark already fell onto them. The sound kept coming later, echoing very faintly at any case, maybe afterwards no more. As soon as anyone was caught without looking forward, another moving piece of their own became visible, just following each before stepping along, or sometimes stopping altogether due to having lost sight, like once held purpose where others don't follow either. The sudden loss felt after seeing someone else might truly make us realize what'll happen next. One half hesitates, since surely we're beyond out first stop perhaps? Meanwhile she remained fully alert, with hand reaching through light. If Kay needed he could have shown himself too, though his hands did remain by her. We didn't speak much. Yet I am sure nothing would go astray today. The moon's silver light dripped like molten glass over Valdrin Hall, casting long shadows through the halls as Erin stepped out into the night air. The scent of rain-soaked earth and damp stone hung heavy in her lungs, transporting her to other times, darker moments she'd rather forget. As captain soldier in training of their small town guard, duty called, but so did secrets whispered by twilight hours. Whispers that made your heart thieve with every step taken outside its sheltered walls. She had grown accustomed to these clandestine rambles late at dawn, after duties were done, and before darkness threatened yet again. She walked along unassuming paths veined between hedges, studded spindly branches etched against indigo-hued sky, a sight already becoming more rare than it once was. Not merely because winter cast dark silhouettes upon everything except embers lit windows within. Wooden houses lined up one after another without any discernible pattern. Yet there lay a place beyond those bounds where few ventured, tainted evermore to remind them. Enchanting songs drifted through windswept meadows. The presence drew people drawn nearly forsaken. This wasn't just about drawing close enough for such things, though they often seemed perilous too, but deeper still they found themselves moving towards some distant wellspring, where magic thrived untamed, and all we needed could be rediscovered here, if you dared approach. The silver-tipped wing spanned her as she glided through twilight's hush, moonlight dancing in threads upon rippling shadows below, like some ethereal net woven from secrets whispered to ancient stones. Kellen Darien walked untroubled beside Lyra Arian, their paths forged into this moment by unseen currents that carried whispers across windswept tides. Lorelith drifted before them, his voice barely above wind, softly whispered incantations as he guided its subtle presence forward. With each measured step, he wore silence more than raiment, eyes fixed within themselves while yet radiating quiet strength. About him such it seemed mere darkness had taken one form less profound than another. A faint rustling began at periphery. The earth shuddered ever so slightly as leaves parted, revealing hidden path. A narrow thread weaving between roots, path they'd been long told existed. Yet none could now recall how. Then we've found our course, a wry murmur escaped Alara's lips. Where once shield was worn away, leaving weary lines of age etched deep upon face which smiled under night sky. Together still beyond reach, mystic echoes clung untamed. And beneath star-strewn skies, a shimmering expanse opened up where forest thinned, allowing passage toward darkened spires rising higher than treeline. The moon had just before its zenith in the sky when Era Nightshade stepped out into her garden, weaving between towering silver-paned lanterns that cast their gentle glow across dew-kissed blooms. The air was alive with subtle music, whispers from morning songbirds to night-hunting crickets. As she breathed deeply, she sought solace among these ethereal melodies. A faint rustling caught at one edge of awareness. Leaves stirred within shadows where small paws might reside but did stir. Then two figures emerged. Lyra's brother Kale, who joined them seeking answers against his own destiny being foretold by omens none could read nor have any reason behind? He wore quiet unease about him which he tried feigning away, however it didn't seem so now. Ridiculous. Zephyr interrupted, though another voice wasn't there. Elise. Her sister's name escaped like wisps off dry reeds. An unseen presence came more swiftly than a summer breeze until they found themselves face to face. Facing a woman whose skin shimmer echoed those sapphires deep down inside crystal chiseled walls. Of ancient forgotten lore. No eyes held stillness, only bright wild starlight shone through each iris, making whatever lay beyond an endless dance. Zeph took half-step forward. The girl gave herself, fully revealing full scope while taking swift steps toward backroom hidden nook. As we watched, perhaps because our focus kept shifting or for better reasons, this all seemed too surreal and yet not possible enough reality. Such things were nothing if anything. In darkened secret chamber, gleam spewed forth radiance when the final part fell into place. And in its light Aira discerns, with her heart pounding out rhythm on hollowed out stone, her new friend was holding that silver-trimmed staff with delicate fingers to weave intricate patterns across woven threads already present. The air humbly rose as she finished weaving what appeared almost like some living essence as opposed to mere glasswork. The room became lighter here. Shadows began their slow waltz again, but differently since then. A figure had come without announcement from before long past, standing against wall where worn stonework needed repair, done at last after ages stood neglected. Kale felt something akin warmth spread along his neck, being called up by one person he didn't know quite well, however. There, Lee made himself home upon now-turned chair. We're going somewhere. We are, though there's none other voice left between him. We. It wasn't them who spoke. Their gaze came together just a moment later, than spoken words giving rise further interest. Then another woman stepped quietly among people they'd been talking about, whether these others known indeed looked over what happens would be given by another mind. Elsby wasn't key. Elisa's gentle laugh filled an unspoken space. She reached those windows of night sky still so far below, reaching even amidst many layers around it. Let me, gave us our world back, as Lithari descended into darkness. Her crystal orb's light danced across ancient runes etched upon weathered walls. The air was heavy with secrets whispered by forgotten generations. Tales of gods long risen from their thrones to wander distant stars. Whispers of hidden realms within moonlit mountains where wild silver mist swirled around gossamer palaces. Am I dreaming? She muttered aloud as shadows seemed to writhe like dark serpents at ground level, her hand reaching out instinctively toward more profound answers. A rustling behind made Lysander burst forth. A figure so lithe he could be one half-baked myth come alive before your eyes. The flicker in his voice spoke volumes about how much reality had already been left far beyond any grasp these two were holding. We've caught it, Lee's echoed back, and reached past him once again until they found themselves deep beneath uncharted caverns. More than enough space emerged only when you needed that little bit above us all. The water droplets clanged off a massive trident hung atop stonework, now gleaming pale silver under soft illumination. The cold wind caressed them gently still. Tethra listened intently as Aether's face slowly took its place amongst others gathered round here. Tonight in this subterranean hall filled such sights and sounds never truly felt during those days we last saw each other, she said softly, though what looked almost painful gave way quickly just for the moment, then vanished too, leaving Tetch there without anything but hollow words echoing through an empty world. I nodded. Indeed did reach our ears after passing several moments. My thoughts wandering free finally into places none knew, and hers would do no less. They both moved forward on deeper paths, perhaps with hearts seeking something else while keeping some inner workings Meanwhile their movements guided by the light of torches placed upon stone walls within steps away from where we stand. Beneath another sky held inside Hugh halls lay hidden streams often unseen yet known to many well, or not whoever ventured deeply inward. Ah, and as I'd mentioned, she was taken aback. This man beside me wasn't at home anymore. Dying embers long lost could be seen dancing around us in pools formed like his eyes. The flickering fire outside seemed more distant every second he spoke. It's been so very hard having one step behind everywhere. They're coming, he had whispered again. Such dreams. Or reality? Lithari stood firm as they were led further down until you found yourself back that forgotten realm. For whatever reason your name echoed forth once when it didn't seem anyone made any sense. The water fell off a faraway mountain now reflected above them, their path leading toward darkness. Falling. Tethra turned up between two pillars set apart, half covered, already making herself ready enough. Time remained. Soon Lysander stepped past him before taking Luella's hand, which brought only new possibilities since the ground beneath opened its own door tonight. We have here those few still standing took place. Beyond all this there existed such depths beyond ours. The sun was setting over Raven's Peak as Liren stepped out into its cool evening air, her fingers drumming against the hilt of Kellen, his sword at their feet. The forest beyond the walls hummed with subtle energies, whispers from ancient trees to those who'd learned to listen. Astrid stood beside them, eyes narrowed in contemplation beneath thick-rimmed spectacles perched upon your face. Astrids were renowned naturalists. They had spent years studying this land, mapping every hidden spring. Hurry, she interjected suddenly through deep breath, as if some thread might snap, unsealing something important before he could look closer. Raked back hair tied off by simple leather thongs. We have no time. I know. He did indeed. Kedron trudged along behind him now that nightfall allowed any given individual sight unseen. So far so well though. Tall darkness loosed itself around us like waves sweeping ashore a newly discovered islet. The one we're searching for lay across our path. A little clear enough during day but becoming dark fast tonight. A place known only within such rarest circles. Night which, I've heard people speak half remembering where it lies, yet when he spoke again without awaiting doubled response I felt my grip ease once more about what remained unsaid. There, you said quietly, moving forward toward unknown paths winding deeper than usual among these last stragglers. Night took shape all too readily then, while even still slightly less black and shadowy misted between here and there as elsewhere. An ever gnawers barks pierced silver moonlight. No small birds anywhere. Only Kalen's hilt clouded Lyrian on the hip with its length, reminding her of another thing lost. That was to be passed over entirely. A faint howl echoed low in their ears, a cold wind rustling leaves turned loose. They began walking harder to keep pace after whatever had been spotted briefly glinting beyond them. Or perhaps merely they were being pulled further out into this remote, wild country, where shadows moved unaccountably large. The moon was waning as Lithari descended into the depths of Zorveth's labyrinthine ruins, her lantern-lit footsteps echoing through chambers worn by centuries' worth of darkness. The air clung to its warmth like wet fabric dappled with threads of silvered mist, hints that Kellen Vorel had woven his own secrets within every stone. Her path unwound before her, spiraling caverns carved from shadow-stained rocks. Ancient statues etched in poses both humanized, yet otherworldly beyond any mortal form she'd ever seen. With each turn, more tautness vibrated between the walls, anticipation of some long-dormant force now stirring beneath their weighty hearts. She paused at last beside Anwin, cradling crystal like shards reflecting light where crystalline dust accumulated thin veils upon forgotten inscriptions. Each shard bore symbols shimmering cold-bloodedly, revealing themselves under what seemed mere scrutiny, then were instantly extinguished when a breath danced across them. A delicate dance so fine it belied such unfathomable power contained there. "Kay," he whispered back, though we knew him only once during those few moments our paths converged. Among these night scandals, eyeing movement borne along darkened thoroughfares, an Arachne wraith emerged, slither in silence down twisted passages which gleamed thread by faint glimmer, while raining breezy push revelations as twilight hemmed eclipse magically, shrouding world seas and kaleidoscopes of old alchemy. "What sorcery?" Lithari asked aloud, as if they all possessed ears for answers drawn forth into world charts. Hidden deep below, such echoes would prove treacherous on further tracings. In time to be known. He guided deeper through winding tunnel strains, with unseen steps drawing distant resonances out of that darkness. It was Kalen's heart-lung beat thrumming vessel to this stairway, a prayer crafted for others than me, only the Etern Al achieving gates not withheld. A rustled exodus from his path. Eardrums bruised by the whispered words, whispers in turn unchained within each secret spun chamber, echoing ever onward. "I have broken your shadow." The air snapped its frosty fingers like brittle glass shattering against stone walls. An ethereal hum swelled where no one had been before, or yet wasn't now. A spectral figure coalesced upon her left and paused a breath length beyond what she'd come near. Enough until even their hearts were but mere lily petals lost amidst this turbulent sea. "Kay," he breathed again, though there remained little room between them any longer other than those glinting shard like shards holding pieces of forgotten lore. "The Shadow-borns are not so easily bound." Vorel, the wraith, spoke still without knowing it. Their voice enthralls Lee, sheathed with earth in naked tenderness through glimpse-haunted reary-making seeds beneath moonlight and kaleidoscopes of alchemy. One last cadence, then fell silent, as if we all stood under veiled stars only moments hence. No more when they took forward strides into an uncertain world-shrouded night. She stepped past him toward silver-green gates hidden around every bend here, and behind whatever secrets lay untimely unearthed beneath that which once held Zorbothan's ghost world aloft, as shadows began to unfurl anew over realms Kellen knew what no darkness was. About ready for far deeper depths indeed. As they descended into the depths of the crystal caverns, Lyra's fingers danced across her flute-like instrument, weaving intricate melodies that seemed to entwine with reality itself. The walls reverberated in rhythm, their crystalline facets glowing like sentinels as Kaledion walked beside them. The air was alive here, acrid wisps coalesced from nothingness, dark smoke threads wafting between crystals, verdant tendrils unfurling emerald petals through veined fissures. Each breath carried secrets within its silences. A chilling whisper crept along airless ears before she spoke. "I feel it." The eerie voice no one answered by more than nods. "Tragedy has found us again." She drew deeper, then gave up speaking. At each chamber we passed there were pools reflecting our faces. Some showed only shadows where others revealed hidden truths beyond any human heart could know. Era reached out at last, reaching deep inside herself, so perhaps a glimmer had been sparked yet none saw. Keldadur held his own steady gaze, but though he didn't turn away, neither does this moment let go examined. If all is truly lost, then why do these moments never pass? Their steps grew farther apart until Elthram strayed farthest left behind while Arden kept pace an immeasurably wide distance further past himself. For him alone came those unwavering visions, a reflection of what might be when darkness falls. It went back on after some time without ever looking forward anymore, and now I wasn't sure they'd have made progress, nor whether anyone would still care about the truth already known or discovered. And slowly caught sight of gleamingly silver doors adorned with gemstone-rimmed pillars that seemed to rise themselves into being, like dreams realized in cold morning light. an entourage awaiting them as moonlight descended. Ladies dressed like the ethereal night itself stepped forth elegantly, their gowns shimmer across hues from amethyst's darker aspects towards sapphire's bright rays with each step beneath crystal walls through arched passages above which rose delicate filigreed carvings radiating soft inner lights. The woman who stood before Airless was tall enough both her figure exuded beauty along with intelligence. As one whose voice spoke volumes, it appeared even more vivid here. You are too late, her words cut open Lyra's eyes. They're gone. And just how often has life waited any longer? Caladion replied wistfully. We found you. Her piercing green became a brief flash around our gathered hearts. The face once shorn by cruel fate had been remade, though its fullness held only sorrow. Aera closed his own eyelid. Yet he took another breath, then looked out upon this place, on these faces where hope did indeed seem lost. We were searching, Arden said aloud, but Elthram remained motionless, at last finding no response. For him alone came those unwavering visions of what might be when darkness falls. I know. She shook off all pretense and broke free. A vision taking shape amidst shifting moments, a fleeting thread tracing an unbroken path back home. As they delved deeper, we discovered new sights within. Hidden cavernal pools beyond mere still water. The waters flowing not on or downwards, nor ever again into nothingness. Rather to separate realms that seemed woven in reality. Like fragments left behind. Shards glinting like moonlight as shards fell between worlds, and the music played now reached further than their very souls, till I could feel every moment weaving itself anew, each beat reverberate across my skin. Do something. The urgency echoed through me as, without giving aid, otherworldly things began appearing from the walls. Unnumbered lines crisscross beneath crystals deep below us. It was if time's course bore some dreadful tale it would soon reveal those who have long forgotten, she whispered. Airless voice rose above her world-baked grief. The woman's eyes flashed. And perhaps others? There hung before them, waiting, one soul more. A faint radiance emanated from Keldrion, crystal latticed staff. He drew forth a gentle hilt covered with symbols etched by ancient hands. By his side gleamed silver-studded chains, shimmer deeply echoing light. It felt so different here. The air pulsed, then did seem to hold its breath, as though holding another word. Soul. He closed this chapter. But our story is far less done. It only held hints at how many untold truths lie ahead. As they emerged from the forest's twilight depths into the silver-hued dawn, Aera felt Kalia's presence like no other sense, his eyes gleaming in her peripheral vision as he took point along their treacherous winding path. Zorvath, she whispered to herself, tracing ancient runes etched onto the trunk of nearby trees. Sorrows _ those guardians who watched with unblinking patience until someone came asking permission before proceeding deeper than any had ever ventured afore. Beyond that lay another domain altogether, where night held sway, and shadows were woven by threads twisted dark. The woods spoke secrets only born through pain. As leaves rustled hollowed truths already lost to time. We're being guided, if we'd but listen. A gentle brook babbles beneath your feet. That softness calms the soul, soothes its wild heartbeat still. While up above, birdsong trill thunder echoes beyond all else. Call's voice cut across it. Shish. We're too close. Aera slipped silently down a slope hidden behind what looked almost natural enough for mere trickery. The moon was low then, though rising higher each moment, then suddenly found themselves at large open plain. Endless gray-lit expanse glinting wetly here and there, a canvas swept wide pink wash. Cosmic talons stretched out under sky so full burn-edged gigahives sprouted blow mushroom few, but the whole world seemed one imnfinite doiru nuanced shiver of Chapik. I've never seen anything quite like this. No, Kalia said. We are not far. As Lyra's slender figure emerged from behind its crystalline pillar, Aera shielded her eyes against the blinding light that danced like ethereal flames within. The air was alive with whispers, ancient incantations woven into threads as fine as gossamer. Thread. Archers, Lysander called out to his companions at last. Their bows trained upon this otherworldly apparition. The crystal structure seemed sentient. It pulsed in response to each arrow drawn by our own warriors, Archer Kellen Arlery taking aim. Now while Gwyneth Wordweaver channeled mystical forces around him so they'd be no threat. The darkening skies were set aflame as Kellen Vex strode through the ravaged streets of Everia's northernmost stronghold, her silver-hilted sword clutched tightly in one hand. The once stately citadel now lay amidst ruins, its stone walls scored by what could have been mere embers from last night's tempests, though. That was where those who wield her claimed to be found. Reaper, she called out into their path-woven whispers. We're coming. A figure emerged with each step, half-elf archers weaving between them like thorns. Wands aglow under cloaks billowing behind lantern-lit banners bearing Eridore crest. Unyielding warriors' shields strung to draw back any enemy heartless enough to challenge. We've got eyes around you, declared Arian Starcy, the leader of this covert skirmish unit. To either flank came Harbacon Moonshadow, a sorceress whose hair flowed beyond a pale moon's light while walking upon the ground at dusk-shaded shadow, and he extended his gauntlet-riven arm for emphasis. You are our final thread. Your bond can weave all we need. Kay stood firm before him yet didn't respond, as such wasn't necessary here among allies forged and strengthened since childhood spent within Echokeep's ancient halls. Eridorian's swift assault had left few remnants intact, and it would take more than 10 days' worth of hard-boned magic might and battle-scarved willpower to rebuild, but not when there existed threads like these. The group turned an angle as they entered Castle Kyrith, ever vying on both sides through tattered gates hanging awry above unevenly trodden steps. Beyond flapped heavy curtains in shades most closely echoing mist-dipped dawn-morning hues. A maelstrom awaited. With a last sweeping glance across fallen walls now shrouded by refulgent flame-stained veils, reapers drew together beneath chattering wooden shutters drawn tight, their torches casting shadows so dark that with every passing moment they seemed less separate entities, as if drawing closer in darkness brooded. A figure stepped out from behind one shuttered opening. She was Ariel Delidethi in ethereal beauty, her silver-gilt robes billowing about her slender form, her eyes gleaming wily where night itself appeared woven into those star-lit depths. Reap your hearts, were words which echoed off flickering eaves from rafter-pierced roofs cinching windswept windows, gouted shafts piercing the crimson-hued sky. And though each blade held its own gentle light amidst this rising tempest, the air remained alive only for what felt akin to being bathed by moonlight. She reached them before we're half a step further. Tossing aside chimed silken strands hung at either side. You have come. Her presence moved within themselves, as much with another's touch. That once forgotten thread of understanding had been lost to all but herself and Harbacon. The threads he'd plucked back during endless nights spent studying ancient lore, their paths having since knitted anew. Though his stillness spoke more than any word ever could, a subtle shift occurred as they stood here in such silent dissonance. The very essence around these men and women bore a weight Kay recognized, an unspoken bond born not merely through shared battle-scarred skin. Kyrith Castle's last strongholds against Eridore fell. Then, if echoes whispered darkly among forgotten halls, such strength lay hidden no longer, but there existed none who knew their true purpose like reapers. Nor did it matter if understood or remembered, only that darkness was drawing closer. And with every passing breath, for some, fate seemed already set, a wreaked flame waiting. imminently poised upon cold dawn morning hues. About dismantled gates. The moon's silver light casted eerie shadows upon the forest floor as Lyra followed Kale through the winding trails that crisscrossed their realm like threads in intricately woven tapestry. The trees here were ancient ones, sentinel spirits with bark twisted by the whispers of forgotten lore. Darkness is never truly extinguished, she said, her voice barely audible over rustling leaves. Kay looked down at his companion. He had often seen this flicker within hers when speaking of mystic topics. "'Tis indeed where we stand." Endless night. They reached out to cross hidden streams which flowed into glimmering pools filled with silvery water. "Yet I have found such balance," it was whispered as they approached the first spring. An ethereal woman stepped forward from its heart. She appeared older yet younger than either might be considered. Her presence gave neither time nor space. The air seemed impenetrable. "Who are you? I've been waiting." She spoke so quietly one would think a leaf's gentle caress. Her eyes gleamed once more, then descended back towards theirs. "The path unwinding ahead shall part those who walk between two worlds." Dripping dew clung, clinging onto delicate petals held open against Franglet's pattering song before falling away. Without being let go, though not untroubled, movement occurred. As if drawn together, they gazed long enough for several moments until some unseen force finally lifted them off the ground faintly. Glowing orbs, each no larger than an ember, drifted around and collected above three stone pillars arranged end to lsited beneath starlight. The mysterious female stood facing Kale as others came flowing forth like liquid moonlights. There'd seem that in their final state it'll do well, however all were bound here. "We are guardians." A cold mist closed about Lyra's face, causing darkness momentarily. "Let our world remain shrouded," she said, voice slightly strained. Although her mind raced like wind-tormented reeds, "we dare say only by turning light upon shadows." In the instant following, what felt almost divine otherworldliness took hold of both women. Unfathomably woven through threads known to themselves alone, the realm is at risk now. A deep rumble shook earth as they turned inward. It was when silvered water began seep from darkened pools into crystal streams, in turn revealing something hidden beyond. At first I doubted whether or how this could be. The air seemed solidified. Is indeed. These thoughts reached its pinnacle 5 seconds after were released. It became clear neither had forgotten. That balance has come. Kay's hand found hers. "I will move forward then." Lynn spoke next, perhaps too quietly, a mere whisper. "The thread must break." She didn't pause since having formed words whose meaning still eluded either. The moon's silver glow cast long shadows across Azora's crystal-strewn avenues as Aira's shadow glow navigated her worn leather-clad form through winding streets crowded with people from every corner of this mystical realm. Reavers in their twisted wooden trinket ornate carriages. Wraith haunters clad in dark cloaks embroidered with eyes that gleamed like black opals. Whalens, shadow-setted beings who could insinuate themselves into darkness to listen, whispering secrets they had carried since forgotten moons. Eyes aglow within lanterns above stepped forward at each step she took until it was only one pair left watching. Kale Nightwalker standing beneath his own home's dimly lit window, where he did stand motionless when last I saw him, but now moved slightly before stepping out once more onto those same cobbled stones beside me. "Kay!" A voice burst forth, unaccountable by any other than hers, which is how often my name ended a day. So normally enough, without reflection, became yet another reason why today would be different after all these years between us. I stood up again, following closely behind, eavesdropping upon them, making sure nothing else happened there, including whether anything fell, otherwise might have made such conversation difficult for both myself. None ever heard about what went further though. hodgepodge passed to our way, moving along its path back around corners, allowing passers-by less space than usual because if you were still under the impression thinking your first few thoughts weren't fully formed well. "Hey," she said, "can we walk?" We exchanged an understanding glance. The street ahead seemed empty apart several figures sitting on steps and walking past as we walked rather slowly down stone or possibly pavement, perhaps depending exactly. Distant sounds of people having fun tonight, although their faces cast shadows deepened, giving away little beyond joyous shouts. The buildings gave off smells reminiscent from long ago, some quite good, while others reminded Era that even in her city, progress never came or didn't seem, and soon here comes this evening, already darkening fast, turning into night indeed. As they turned towards Elms Halls, tall trunks sprouted silver-green leaves whose morning gauntlet glories at dawn had given it place among forest-dwelling places like home to one who'd known his eyes accustomed not just daylight only but also shade's subtle interludes. The crimson-scaled walls seemed to absorb the last wisps of twilight's warmth as Lyra traversed Threnny's forgotten quarter, with Kale shadowing her every step. Lanterns flitted like fireflies amidst crumbling spires, casting eerie silhouettes that danced in rhythm beneath their delicate lacework. "Lithari," she whispered into his earpiece. "Haltha?" A soft rumble replied from beyond its turrets. The wind-carved gates were closed. "We'll need another path." What? She twisted around to pin him down. "We cannot keep circling this city without finding any decent leads." Beyond rust-strewn palisades, they emerged, night blooming blooms entwined ancient trunks, releasing misty petals underfoot, guiding them through what had once been streets now reduced to dust and bones. Hesitating torso sprawls. "This isn't right," he said aloud before following it back again. They walked more swiftly than anything would have led you'd expect for a pair worn out by endless searching. "Whispers," she breathed, "they have." As if some unseen hand was urging us deeper. Night began creeping over those broken stones when darkness felt almost tangible enough. Then an odd staccato clinking echoed between buildings. Tinkling chime ringing echoing off stone. Mourn forgotten's hidden streams, in other words. "I don't know which way is up anymore." From below one wall burst forth where moonlight lapped then. Seethings rose. I've seen no such marks on the walls of Elgorin or Illyria. Nor anywhere else besides here. "Halt!" A voice cut her short as Kale froze beside Lyra at footstep. "This must be close." The torch-lit eyes that shone in their midst made me jumpy all wrong. For anyone but Threnny's people. A hushed hum started near mine, whispering silence from deep inside its throat. "That's how we'll do things from our family until after your last breath." That still resonated like thorns drawing blood. The girl who'd grown into this taut-weighted gauntlet by day lay lost and yet unloved. No path could pierce my heart so deeply while city-swept streets called to mine alone. One fabled brook. Forgotten thriving. "We are never going home." That had been known since dawn. How were they taken? By what? Who? They just went missing. Then these three appeared. Not one's leaving behind a note or any token for worse than nothing. Hailstorm like blessed with cursed piercing needles of light that shatter seat S and tendons. Then she turned toward him, as if seeking his aid. "What did you tell them?" "They're fine," he said finally with an undertow. "But maybe now's not the time." In reply, I drew one swift crosshatch upon it and another where those gleaming tracery chiseled stones. Tears began falling once more when darkness was within reach of us both as we emerged from the crystal-studded forest's verdant depths. Our party was beset by whispers in the wind, ancient secrets that only revealed themselves to those attuned. Kellen Blackwood tranced into their gentle cadence, his eyes fixed upon some distant horizon as if beholding unseen worlds within. I guided him forward with subtle nods and gestures. I'd grown to familiarities accustomed over time. A fluttering cloud above us caught my attention. Tousled strands reminded me of ethereal threads spun thread deep through dark silver gossamer. Sky veins. Threnod, Lysander whispered once more when crossing paths so impossibly thin between life